This is NEO on the monthly chart. It has hit a double bottom. This is NEO on the weekly chart. It is now broken the downtrend line. This is NEO on the daily chart. Price is now back at a level that suggests to go long. So should you go long?
And speaking of automakers, we're watching some other movers here, including the Chinese automakers Li, Xpeng, and NIO, all falling this morning after the European Union launched an investigation in a bid to ward off the flood of what it says are cheap imports. The head of the EU's executive arm says the price is being kept artificially low by huge state subsidies in China, and that it is distorting the market. That interesting here. Sort of as we get all of these back and forth trade tensions between China and other nations heating up, EC President Ursula von der Leyen saying that Europe is open to competition, but, quote, not for a race to the bottom. Oh, wow. When addressing some of these EV makers.
Yeah, fighting words indeed. And for a lot of those EV makers who have been trying to globalize, or at least trying to diversify where their income and where their revenue is coming in from, in their efforts to try and expand more globally, moving into Europe and having more shipments go in that direction, especially at a time where there is more of an uptick, at least in the focus among the consumers right now and where those electric vehicle options are. This is a potential hit, at least on sentiment in that near term in that race here.
Yeah, and just quickly, if you look at the tariffs that are imposed on Chinese EV imports or car imports generally, for Europe, it's 10%. For the U.S., it's 27.5%. So Chinese automakers have taken advantage of that by exporting more cars to Europe. And I was just looking at some figures quoted by CNN from the China Passenger Car Association. 350,000 electric vehicles from China imported into Europe in the first 9 months of the year, first half of the year, excuse me. Yeah. So that's, it's a relatively big market, and it's one that China's been selling aggressively into. So that's the backdrop for this commentary from the EU.
Yeah, shares moving lower as they could face some punitive tariffs if found guilty here, too.
This article is coming from Bar Chart. Should you buy NEO stock on the dip? NEO has been sliding since its peak in early 2021 and fell sharply in both 2021 and 2022. Previously, it had rallied over 1,100% in 2020 as it proved critics wrong and not only survived the bankruptcy scare, but also looked set to embark on an ambitious growth plan. Over the past 2 years, the company's growth hasn't been very promising. Its monthly deliveries averaged less than 10,000 in the first half of 2023, and gross margins were a mere 1% in Q2 2023, compared to double-digit gross margins in the same quarter last year. NEO has an impeccable lead in the luxury EV market in China. In July, it had a 59% market share in the premium market. That month, NEO's deliveries rose to a record high, likely due to a preponement of customer purchases ahead of the withdrawal of free battery swapping on new cars from August. NEO's financial performance is expected to improve in the coming quarters. Gross margins are projected to return to double digits in Q3 and expand further to 15% in Q4. The automaker expects deliveries to stabilize and sustain above 20,000 beginning in Q4 and is preparing its supply chain to support monthly deliveries of 30,000. Like most fellow startup EV companies, NEO is burning cash. However, NEO had $4.3 billion in cash and cash equivalents on its balance sheet at the end of June, and in July, it secured additional funding of $738.5 million from CYNH Holdings, which is majority owned by Abu Dhabi government. The EV company also has tacit support from the Chinese government, which bailed out NEO in 2020 when it was staring at bankruptcy. NEO trades at a next 12-month price to sales multiple of 1.53x, which is lower than leads Auto and XPeng Motors. NIO still looks like a reasonable buy for investors, given the growth forecast and reasonable valuation. The company might also see interest from auto majors, just as peer XPeng Motors caught the eye of Volkswagen, which invested in the company and will now co-develop 2 models for the Chinese market. With many other global auto companies struggling in China, NIO might appear as an attractive partner to some, and any such venture could drive the stock higher. Now going back to the daily chart, this was a great level if price closed above, say, the $11.50 level, but that didn't happen. Price is now penetrating deeper into the zone, trying to find those remaining unfilled orders. You might have some unfilled orders below the $9.90 level. However, what I would like to see as confirmation, if this zone is going to work, is we need to see some type of strong volume coming out, a retest, and then the continuation in the uptrend. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Please like the video.